as Eloise is saying, like, you're going to educate your network, right? To do that, you'll be educating yourself. So for those people out there who are still saying, like, I've got a job to do, I don't have time for this LinkedIn thing. Honestly, it's a much about, as you start to build your own brand, you're also building your own knowledge and your own, like, way of kind of presenting your own knowledge and what vernacular you're going to use and how you're going to present it, and spending time with Google Alerts. Like you say, you might disagree with everything you see. That's fine. It gives you something to say. Hi, guys, I saw this article this morning which said everyone is in my industry. Can't disagree less. Can't disagree more. What I think is, bah. But if it gets those juices going, if it just gets you to kind of think about what you're doing, and even if it doesn't become a post, that's really useful for your job. Like, that will come up during the week. You'll be able to use it in a conversation. You're going to sound like you got your finger on the pulse, which is, what I want when I speak to a supplier. I know that much. I want them to know that they're doing their job.
Yes, yeah. Well, I would say to people, you can pre-plan the content. You could have this idea of, Monday I'm doing a video, Tuesday I'm creating a poll, Wednesday I'm putting an image up, Thursday I'm going to share a blog, or whatever it might be. So you could have this pre-structured plan in place where right, okay, that's what you've got to do on that particular morning. Or you could do something more ad hoc. You could say, hey, I've got a really busy day today. I'm really looking forward to speaking with Jay. And then you add that person into the post, you tag their business in there, and automatically you've reached a wider network, but you've also given somebody else in your network a shout out and help them promote their business as well. So there are lots of ways that, you can find something to give back to your community just through doing a simple post.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you suggest to people that they do schedule out their content, at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the week a little bit, so it makes it easier on a day-to-day basis?
I think it varies. It's going to be down to the individual and how organized they want to be. But also, I think it can be easier if you are client facing or you're working on kind of exciting projects, because then it's a case of just waking up in the morning and telling people what you're up to, or telling people what you did the day before. If you're in more of a back end role, for example, you might be a web designer, but you're not the one out doing the business development side.
Yep.
What you're doing is still trying to build a network to support the business, but it's more about giving that education back and showing your knowledge and your expertise. And like you said, learning at the same time.
And let's talk about that, because there is the real people, right? And I say real people, but I've always been a salesperson and involved with marketing. So I'm not a real person. I just talk like a real person, right? But all the businesses I've worked in, I've had brilliant, brilliant people who don't want to be standing at the front of a room or doing something on video or whatever. But those were the people with the goods. Like, I didn't have the goods. I didn't know, like when I worked in IT, I didn't know nothing about IT. Sold loads of it. Why? Because I'd go into a room with someone who knew everything, and I'd be like, make some silly jokes, and then be like, and have you met Ted? Right? And pass it over to whoever I was with. Those of you out there who are doing and feel like, you're behind the scenes or anything like that, your knowledge is the important stuff. Like what you know about the business and what you do on a day-to-day basis, even though you think it's probably mundane or it's just obvious or it's, everyone does this, or, everyone who's an accountant does this, everyone who in my role does this. Like, it's so exciting for the rest of us. I'm constantly looking over the shoulders of the video editors and podcast guys who've got working for us. And I'm like, look at that. It's like the Matrix is so cool. And then like a video comes out the end. And I've been doing this for 7 years, right? I'm still impressed by it. I think those people out there who are doing the doing, that is actually where the real content is. And even if you're not going to be out there with your flag in the ground, shouting and singing and dancing on LinkedIn, take that content and give it to your marketing people, give it to a sales people, let them be the mouthpiece, because the little bits and pieces that you find interesting is really exciting for your network. Like, that's what they care about, not always just a salesperson being like, what up? How you doing? Good to see you.
That's it. Yeah. And I guess further to that as well, what is important not to fall into the trap of maybe using too much industry jargon or something that's going to befuddle your network, so to speak. But I think LinkedIn likes to see, clear sentences, easily formatted, especially if you think about it. If you're writing a really, really long post and somebody's reading that on a mobile, the view and how it's received is going to be different. So using, I even read a blog the other day that said, don't use words over 8 letters. Now, I think that's probably a bit draconian and extreme, and I wouldn't necessarily use that myself. I know, right? Very particular. But I think, if you just make it clear, and especially if you're talking about something in your industry, no matter what industry you're in, people outside of that aren't necessarily going to know what to you is second nature. But to them is they need to start at the basics to understand the industry and understand the message. So just break it down. Tell it to me like I'm 5 years old and let me learn along with you.
And that is the way. I remember my English teacher telling me that when I was like writing year 7, beginning of high school, writing the first piece. And I remember saying to me, like, you've written this to me because I've read the book. Like, it was about Romeo and Juliet or something, right? And she was like, you can't write like that. Like, and I was like, but you wanted me to write this. And she was like, yeah, I know. But you're writing a piece which might be read by somebody else. So you got to explain it all. And simply, like, just because you know so much, it's not like, it isn't helpful. And isn't it funny how, like, so many of these tactics or tasks, whatever, that we're talking about here is obvious for salespeople, right? It's something that people have been harping on about sales forever. Like, don't blow people away with all your knowledge because no one cares. Like, listen to them and talk about what's relevant to them and how you can fix the issue. Not, I know the speeds and the feeds and the thing and the stuff and it has this much throughput. Like, unless the person or the audience you're speaking to love that, it's going to go over most people's heads. And social is about high level so that you can start a conversation and get into the nitty gritty if you want to.
Yes, yeah. Well, when I started making regular video content for LinkedIn, it kind of grew out of the fact that I just started working for a data center, and I was learning all about cybersecurity, and I really did not know much about it at all at first. So what I would do is I'd just use that opportunity to say, hey, guys, do you know how a firewall works? And I'd make a 1-minute video where I'd talk through the most basic parts of how a firewall worked. And I was teaching myself at the same time. Cool. But it also made it, by sharing that information, and, I wasn't pushing sales or, talking about the company as such. I was just trying to educate people. And what I found was when I posted a video, I'd log back into LinkedIn and I'd have like 30 requests of people asking about partnerships or how they could learn more about the data center. And I was like, wow. Okay. And my audience grew from like about 5,000 connections to another 6,000 in the course of a few months. So I was like, right, okay, I'm clearly on the right track in terms of putting this content out there. So how can I grow this more?
And isn't that interesting? Like, an industry like software as a service is full of such technical people. Like, I was always blown away. I used to work in security and networking. And I say working, I used to sell. I didn't know how to do things.
Yes, yeah.
You can tell.
Same boat here, Jay, same boat.
I'm willing to have a conversation, but at some point I'm going to be like, I'm
going to pass you on to this guy.
You should speak. I know who you should speak to. I know the guy. But isn't it interesting that releasing content as something like that, as simple as this is how a firewall works, if you could easily talk yourself out of releasing that because, hey, I'm posting out to the IT industry. Those are the people I'm trying to sell to. These people are all far smarter than me, know all about this. There's no point me telling them about how to do a firewall. But you post that out and you get all those connection requests because it shows that you know what a firewall is. And even if the next person, obviously everyone knows what a firewall is, right? When you're working in that industry. But when you're a customer and you're looking at two different businesses, why do you go here and not here? Well, I've seen them talk about it. I like her. I'll say hi. As opposed to them, I don't know who they are. Maybe they know stuff, right? Yeah. So it's just really interesting, I think, because people can really quickly talk themselves out of, no one will find this interesting, or it'll be far too obvious for me. There's no point in me posting that. No one will care. But you've proven it's not the case.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's why it's really worth taking advantage of like the feature, the cover story feature that LinkedIn offer, which gives you the option to have a 30-second video clip that sits behind your profile. Because ultimately, if someone that's outside of your network clicks on your profile, yeah, of course they can sit in and read through. It's not everybody's preference. So if they've got the option to click on a video, learn more about you and your business in a nice format, it's just another nice touch point that allows people to connect with you, understand who you are. And especially, salespeople, I'm not sure how many people will be familiar with DISC scoring. So looking at the different personality types and trying to assess how you're going to next engage with the person. Are they an introvert? Are they an extrovert? Do they like analytical thinking? That's it. Yeah. Or are they more social or an influencer type of personality? Yes. Yeah. So it definitely helps you, if I came onto Jay's profile and I didn't know what his personality type was, by looking at that video, I mean, obviously Jay's an extrovert, otherwise he wouldn't be doing this kind of show. But ultimately, it gives you a good idea of how you can then go and approach that person as well.
100%, right? And from the other way around as well is that I want to put that out there. So if people go and see some content from me and they're like, maybe, or like they need a podcast or a video or something, and they come to my profile, if they click on that picture, on that profile picture and see that 30-second video, they might immediately be like, nah, it's not for me. He's too handsy. He swears all the time. He talks too, nah. I want to go and work with someone else over there who does it differently. And I think as a salesperson, that was a real revelation for me that it's okay to disqualify people. That's fine. There's 8 billion, I don't know, people on LinkedIn. I think it's 800 million active users. 800
million as of January, yeah, and growing all the time.
So no matter what you sell, there's enough people out there to sell for them forever.
Yes, right? Yeah, that's it. It's funny because... Oh, sorry, Jay.
No, I was going to say, it was the last business I worked in, was the first business I'd ever worked in sales that said to me, if they don't want it, put the phone down, call somebody else. And I was like, what? And I've taken that into social to be like, if you don't like it, that's great. Mm-hmm. That's brilliant for me, because otherwise I'm going to be like, hey, and say hi. So tell me you don't want it and I'll get the hell out of Dodge,
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I say to people when it comes to managing your network. Ultimately, if you're on the free version of LinkedIn, you've got 100 connection requests a week. But how many times do you go into your invitations, look at what you've sent and scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see there's probably invitations there that you've sent from well over, could be a year ago, potentially sometimes. It's well worth just going through and just start right at the bottom of that list and just start withdrawing the requests of, I'd say, anyone who's not accepted over a 3-week period, really.
Yep. And that's a top tip. Yeah. That's such a top tip. I literally had someone look at mine the other day and was like, you've got connection requests from 2016. I was like, fuck. And I send out 100 a week? More? Yeah. Easy, right?
Well, that's the thing, if they're not going to accept over the course of 2-3 weeks, then it's unlikely that they're going to accept. Now, what will happen is when you go to withdraw the request, you'll get a notification that says, if you withdraw this, you won't be able to connect with this person for another 3 weeks. Doesn't matter, because there's so many other people who you can potentially connect with. Ultimately, they're going to come back round into your network. But that's where you've got the option. You can withdraw the request and forget about it, or you can go on their profile, see if there's any open source information. Have they put an email or phone number? Do they want people to get in touch in another method? Give them a call that way. It doesn't always have to, you don't have to waste that connection. Just find another strategy to get in touch.
And I think that's really, really important, because there are so many people, and I sound like an old man, but damn it, I'm allowed to. I'm heading towards 40. But there's a whole new generation who come into work who don't want to pick up a phone. It's not like the way the culture has been bred for them. They don't call their friends. They don't sit on the stairs with a phone and the wire stretched like I used to, calling my mates, and be like, get off the phone. All right, okay, cool. You can't use the internet. So, it's a whole generation of people who have communicated with everyone via text, and it doesn't feel as natural for them to pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. But it's so important for me, I think it's so important not to push how I want to connect onto someone else, right? That is absolutely, like, if I'm trying to connect with you, well, then I should do it in the easiest medium that you find. Now, that might be email. That might be LinkedIn. Brilliant, nice and easy. We're talking about how easy that is, but it also might be a phone call. That might be how someone wants to connect, or they might I'm very much someone who, as soon as I met someone face to face, I'm then happy to talk via WhatsApp or whatever forever. And I know them, and they're someone, they're part of my 150 friends club. But other people don't. And I think it's so important to make sure that you are connecting with people and continuing, if you're chasing someone up and not getting a response via email again and again and again, try something else. It might not be that they're just darking you and ignoring you and being like, right? Instead, it might be a case of that they don't see their emails, or your emails are going to junk, or they prefer LinkedIn, or they hate social and email and they're just sitting there waiting for a phone call.
Yeah.